again, friends. We're continuing with chapter 2. Of all the ridiculous expressions people use, and people use a great many ridiculous expressions, one of the most ridiculous is no news is good news. No news is good news simply means that if you don't hear from someone, everything is probably fine. And as you can see at once, why this expression makes little sense, because everything being fine is only one of the many reasons why someone may not contact you. Perhaps they are tied up. Maybe they are surrounded by fierce weasels, or perhaps they are wedged tightly between two refrigerators and cannot get themselves out. The expression might well be changed to no news is bad news, except that people may not be able to contact you because they have been crowned king or are competing in a gymnastics tournament. The point is that there is no way to know why someone has not contacted you until they contact you and explain themselves. For this reason, the sensible expression would be no news is no news, except there is this is so obvious, it is hardly an expression at all. Obvious or not, however, it is the proper way to describe what happened to the Baudelaires after they sent the desperate telegram to Mr. Poe. Violet, Klaus, and Sunny sat and stared at the telegram device for hours, waiting for some sign of the banker's reply. As the hour grew later and later, they took turns dozing against the merchandise of the Last Chance general store, hoping for any response from the man who was in charge of the orphan affairs. And at the first few rays of dawn, as the first few rays of dawn shone through the window, illuminating all of the price tags in the store, the only news the children had received was that the shopkeeper had made some fresh cranberry muffins. I've made some fresh cranberry muffins, the shopkeeper said, peeking around a tower of floor sifters. He was wearing at least two potholders on each hand and was carrying the muffins on a stack of different colored trays. Normally, I would put them up for sale between the phonograph records and the garden rakes, but I hate to think of you three children without breakfast when there are vicious murderers on the loose. So have some for yourself free of charge. That's very kind of you, Violet said, as she and her siblings each took a muffin from the shopkeeper's top tray. The Baudelaires, who had not eaten since they left the village, soon made short work, a phrase which here means ate every warm, sweet crumb of the pastries. Goodness, you're hungry, the shopkeeper said. Did everything go all right with the telegram? Have you received a reply? Not yet, Klaus said. Well, don't worry your tiny heads about it, the shopkeeper replied. Remember, no news is good news. No news is good news, called out a voice from somewhere in the store. I have some news for you, Milt. Are all about those murderers. Lou, the shopkeeper called in delight, and then turned to the children. Excuse me, please, he said. Lou, here's the Daily Punctilio. The shopkeeper walked through a bunch of rugs hanging from the ceiling, and the Baudelaires looked at one another in dismay. What do we do? Klaus whispered to his sister. If the newspaper has arrived, the shopkeeper will read that we're murderers. We'd better run away. But if we run away, Violet said, Mr. Poe won't be able to contact us. Agree, Sunny said, which meant he's had all night to contact us, and we haven't heard from him. Lou, they heard the shopkeeper call out. Where are you, Lou? I'm over by the pepper grinders, the delivery person called out in return. And wait till you read this story about the three murderers of that count. It's got pictures and everything. I just feel that would be his accent. Maybe it's not. Oh no, I'm talking like a southerner now. Sorry. Let me undo that. Undo. It's got pictures and everything. I saw the police on their way here, and they said they were closing in. Oh gosh, stop it. The only person they allowed in the area were me. He said were me. It's really hard not to. Okay. Were me and those volunteer people. They're going to capture those kids and send them right to jail. Kids, the shopkeeper said. The murders are kids? Yep, the delivery person replied. See for yourself. The children looked at one another, and Sunny gave a little whisper of fear. Across the store, they could hear the rustling of paper and the excited voice of the shopkeeper. I know those kids, he cried. They're in my store right now. I just gave them some muffins. You gave muffins to murderers? Lou said. That's not right, Milt. Criminals should be punished, not fed pastries. Sorry. I didn't know they were murderers then, the shopkeeper explained, but I sure know now. It says so right here in the Daily Punctilio. Call the police, Lou. I'll grab these murderers and make sure they don't escape. The bottlers wasted no time and began to run in the opposite direction from the men's voices, down an aisle of safety pins and candy canes. Let's head towards those ceramic ashtrays, Violet whispered. I think we can exit that way. But what happens when we exit? Klaus whispered back. The delivery person said that the police were closing in. Molik! Sonny cried, which meant let's discuss that later in time. Egad! The children could hear the shopkeeper's surprised voice from several aisles over. Lou, the kids aren't here. Keep an eye out for them. What do they look like? The delivery person called back. They look like 3 innocent children, the shopkeeper said, but they're really vicious criminals. Be careful. The children ran around a corner and ducked into the next aisle, pressing themselves against a rack of construction paper and canned peas as they listened to the hurrying footsteps of the delivery person. Wherever you murderers are, he called, you better give up. We're not murderers, Violet cried in frustration. Of course you're murderers, the shopkeeper answered. It says so in the paper. Plus, the delivery person said in a sneering voice, if you're not murderers, why are you hiding and running? Violet started to answer, but Klaus covered her mouth before she could say anything more. They'll be able to tell where we are by our voices, he whispered. Just let them talk and maybe we can escape. Lou, do you see them? Called the shopkeeper. No, but they can't hide forever, the delivery person said. I'm going to look over by the undershirts. The bottlers looked ahead of them and saw a pile of white undershirts that happened to be on sale. Gasping, the children doubled back, not doubled back, no, we'll try again, and ran down an aisle covered in ticking clocks. I'm going to try the clock aisle, the shopkeeper cried. They can't hide forever. The children hurried down the aisle, sprinting past a rack of towel racks and piggy banks, and scurried around a display of sensible plaid shirts. Finally, over the top of the shelf of an aisle containing nothing but different kinds of bedroom slippers, Violet spotted a glimpse of an exit and silently pointed the way to her siblings. I bet they're in the sausage aisle, the shopkeeper said. I bet they're near the bathtub display, the delivery person called. They can't hide forever, the shopkeeper cried. The bottlers took a deep breath and they bolted towards the exit of the Last Chance General Store. But as soon as they got outside, they realized the shopkeeper was right. The sun was rising, revealing the flat and desolate landscape the children had walked across all night. In a few hours, the entire countryside would be covered in sunlight, and the land was so flat that the children would be seen from far, far away. They couldn't hide forever, and as Violet, Klaus, and Sunny stood outside the Last Chance General Store, it seemed they couldn't hide for even one more instant. Look, Klaus said, and pointed in the direction of the rising sun. Parked a ways from the store was a square gray van with the letters VFD printed on the side. That must be the volunteers fighting disease, Violet said. The delivery person said only he and the volunteers were allowed in this area. Then that's the only way we can hide, Klaus said. If we can sneak aboard the van, we can escape from the police, at least for now. But this might be the right VFD, Violet said. If these volunteers are part of the sinister secret the Quagmire triplets tried to tell us about, we might be going from a bad situation to a worse one. Or, Klaus said, it might get us closer to solving the mystery of Jack Snicket. Remember, he said, he worked as a volunteer right before he was murdered. It won't do us any good to solve the mystery of Jack Snicket, Violet said, if we're in jail. Blueston, Sunny said. She meant something along the lines of, we don't have much choice, and in small, tottering steps, she led her siblings towards the VFD van. But how will we get on the van? Violet asked, walking alongside her sister. What will we say to the volunteers? Klaus asked, hurrying to catch up. Impro, Sunny said, which meant, We'll think of something. But for once, the three children didn't have to think of something. As the youngsters reached the van, a friendly-looking man with a guitar in his hand and a beard on his face leaned out of one of the windows and called to them. "We almost left you behind, brothers and sisters." "Brother and sisters," he said. "We filled the van up with free gas, and now we're all set to head out to the hospital." With a smile, the man unlatched the door of the van and opened it, beckoning to the three children. "Climb aboard," he said. "We don't want our volunteers to get lost before we even sing the first verse. I heard something about murders lurking around this area." "Did you read it in the newspaper?" Klaus asked nervously. The bearded man laughed and stammered a cheerful chord on his guitar. "Oh no," he said. "We don't read the newspaper. It's too depressing. Our motto is no news is good news. You must be new volunteers not to know that." "Well, hop in." The bottlers hesitated. "As I'm sure you know, it is rarely a good idea to get into an automobile with somebody you haven't met before, particularly if the person believes in such nonsense as no news is good news. But it is never a good idea to stand around a flat and empty landscape while the police are closing in to arrest you for a crime you have not committed." And the three children paused for a moment to decide between doing something, which is rarely a good idea, and something that is never a good idea. They looked at the bearded man with the guitar. They looked at each other, and then they looked at the Last Chance General Store, where they saw the shopkeeper rushing out of the front door and towards the van. "Okay," Violet said finally, "we'll hop in." Mm-mm. No, no getting in vans, ever. "Okay," Violet said finally, "we'll hop in." I thought I'd repeat that. The bearded man smiled, and the children stepped into the VFD van and shut the door behind them. They did not hop, even though the man had asked them to hop in, because hopping is something done in the cheerful moments of one's life. A plumber might hop, for instance, if she fixed a particularly difficult leak in someone's shower. A sculptor would hop if his sculpture of four Basset Hounds playing cards was finally finished, and I would hop like somebody has ever hopped before if I could somehow go back to that terrible Thursday and stop Beatrice from attending that afternoon tea where she met Esme Squalor for the first time. Oh my. But Violet, Klaus, and Sunny did not hop. Of course they didn't. Because they were not plumbers fixing leaks or sculptors finishing works of art, or authors magically erasing a series of unfortunate events. They were three desperate children falsely accused of murder, forced to run out of a store into a stranger's automobile to avoid capture by the police. The Baudelaires were not hopping, even as the van started its engine and began to drive away from the Last Chance General Store, ignoring the desperate signals of the shopkeeper as he ran to try to stop them. As the BFD van began to drive across the lonely landscape, the Baudelaire orphans were not sure they would ever hop again. And that is the end of chapter 2. Again, do not get in anyone's van. Please don't get in anyone's van. Don't. Unless you know them, of course. Even then, van owners, I don't know. Just kidding. I'm just kidding. But don't get in vans. Till next time.